We live in a physical world with its four known space-time dimensions of length, width, height, or depth, and time. However, God dwells in a different realm, the spirit realm, beyond the perception of our physical senses. It's not that God isn't real. It's a matter of His not being limited by the physical laws and dimensions that govern our world. Isaiah 57:15. Knowing that God is spirit. John 4:24. What is His relationship to time? In Psalm 90:4, Moses used a simple yet profound analogy in describing the timelessness of God. For 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. The eternity of God is contrasted with the temporality of man. Our lives are but short and frail, but God does not weaken or fail with the passage of time. In a sense, the marking of time is irrelevant to God because He transcends it. Peter, in 2 Peter 3-8, cautioned his readers not to let this one critical fact escape their notice, that God's perspective on time is far different from mankind's. Psalm 102-12, 24-27. The Lord does not count time as we do. He is above and outside of the sphere of time. God sees all of eternity's past and eternity's future. The time that passes on earth is of no consequence from God's timeless perspective. A second is no different from an eon. 1 billion years pass like seconds to the eternal God. Though we cannot possibly comprehend this idea of eternity or the timelessness of God, we in our finite minds try to confine an infinite God to our time schedule. Those who foolishly demand that God operate according to their time frame ignore the fact that He is the high and lofty one, who lives forever. Isaiah 57:15. This description of God is far removed from man's condition. The length of our days is 70 years, or 80, if we have the strength. Yet their span is but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass, and we fly away. Psalm 90:10. Again, because of our finite minds, we can only grasp the concept of God's timeless existence in part. And in so doing, we describe Him as a God without a beginning or end, eternal, infinite, everlasting, etc. Psalm 90:2 declares, "From everlasting to everlasting you are God." See also Psalm 93:2. He always was and always will be. So what is time? To put it simply, time is duration. Our clocks mark change, or, more precisely, our timepieces are benchmarks of change that indicate the passage of time. We could say then that time is a necessary precondition for change, and change is a sufficient condition to establish the passage of time. In other words, whenever there's change of any kind, we know that time has passed. We see this as we go through life, as we age, and we cannot recover the minutes that have passed by. Additionally, the science of physics tells us that time is a property resulting from the existence of matter. As such, time exists when matter exists. But God is not matter. God, in fact, created matter. The bottom line is this: time began when God created the universe. Before that, God was simply existing. Since there was no matter, and because God does not change, time had no existence and therefore no meaning, no relation to Him. And this brings us to the meaning of the word eternity. Eternity is a term used to express the concept of something that has no end and / or no beginning. God has no beginning or end, but He cannot be wholly defined by eternity, especially as a measure of time. God is eternal, but eternity does not equal God. Similarly, God is all-powerful, but power does not equal God. Eternity is one of God's attributes, but having created time, He is greater than time and exists outside of it. Scripture reveals that God lives outside the bounds of time as we know it. Our destiny was planned before the beginning of time. 2 Timothy 1-9, Titus 1-2, and before the creation of the world. Ephesians 1-4, 1 Peter 1:20. By faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. Hebrews 11:3. In other words, the physical universe we see, hear, feel, and experience was created not from existing matter, but from a source independent of the physical dimensions we can perceive. God is spirit, John 4:24. And correspondingly, God is timeless rather than being eternally in time or being beyond time. Time was simply created by God as a limited part of His creation for accommodating the workings of His purpose in His disposable universe. See 2 Peter 3:10-12. Upon the completion of His creation activity, including the creation of time, what did God conclude? God saw all that He had made, and it was very good. Gen 1:31. Indeed, God is spirit in the realm of timelessness, rather than flesh in the sphere of time. As believers, we have a deep sense of comfort knowing that God, though timeless and eternal, is in time with us right now. He is not unreachably transcendent, but right here in this moment with us. And because He's in this moment, He can respond to our needs and prayers. What does it mean that God is eternal? The word eternal means everlasting, having no beginning and no end. Psalm 90:2 tells us about God's eternality. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting you are God. Since humans measure everything in time, it is very hard for us to conceive of something that had no beginning, but has always been, and will continue forever. However, the Bible does not try to prove God's existence or His eternality, but simply begins with the statement, "In the beginning God." Genesis 1:1, indicating that at the beginning of recorded time, God was already in existence. From duration stretching backward without limit to duration stretching forward without limit, from eternal ages to eternal ages, God was and is forever. When Moses was commissioned by God to go to the Israelites with a message from Him, Moses wondered what he would tell them if they asked him what God's name was. God's reply is most revealing. God said to Moses, "I am who I am." This is what you are to say to the Israelites. "I am has sent me to you." Exodus 3:14. This signifies the real being of God, His self-existence, and that He is the being of beings. It also describes His eternality and immutability, as well as His constancy and faithfulness in fulfilling His promises, because it includes all time, past, present, and future. The sense is, not only I am what I am at present, but I am what I have been, and I am what I shall be, and shall be what I am. God's own words about His eternality speak to us from the pages of Scripture. Jesus Christ, God incarnate, also verified His deity and His eternality to the people of His day by declaring to them, "Before Abraham was born, I am." John 8:58. It is clear that Jesus was claiming to be God in flesh because the Jews, upon hearing this statement, tried to stone Him to death. To the Jews, declaring oneself to be the eternal God was blasphemy and worthy of death. Leviticus 24:16. Jesus was claiming to be eternal, just as His Father is eternal. The Apostle John also declared this truth regarding the nature of Christ. "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." John 1:1. Jesus and His Father are one in essence. They exist sans time, and they share equally in the attribute of eternality. Romans 1:20 tells us that God's eternal nature and His eternal power are revealed to us through His creation. All men see and understand this aspect of God's nature by the witness of the various aspects of the created order. The sun and heavenly bodies continue in their orbits century after century. The seasons come and go in their appointed time. The trees produce leaves in spring and drop them in the fall. Year after year, these things continue, and no one can stop them or alter God's plan. All of this attests to God's eternal power and plan for the earth. One day, He will create a new heaven and new earth, and they, like Him, will continue into eternity. We who belong to Christ through faith will continue through eternity as well, sharing the eternality of our God in whose image we are created. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.